Good evening, everyone. We should now be live, coming to you for the 60th anniversary celebration of Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain release with the Gil Evans Project under the direction of Ryan Truesdell for our premiere of Rodrigo's Concierto de Aranjuez. So welcome. This program is brought to you by Jazz Standard in partnership with the New Jersey Performing Arts Center as part of NJPAC's TD Bank Jazz Series. In addition to that, I just want you to know that there is a whole lot of programs that NJPAC has and has been doing virtually. Please be sure to visit njpac.org for the latest upcoming performances and a full list of online programming that includes NJPAC Series in Your Living Room, which is a curated collection of past Arts Center performances, content from their partners, educational videos for children, and so much more. So additionally, we welcome everyone here tonight. We know and hope this gives you some very much needed joy and relaxation as well. But we're going to have some serious fun tonight. So without further ado, I'd love to bring in to join us right now the great arranger and composer, Mr. Ryan Truesdell. So Ryan will join us now.
Hi, everybody.
So I just want to tell you that Ryan Truesdell is a Grammy Award-winning composer and arranger. He has devoted a great deal of his energies over the years to presenting the incredible works of Gil Evans, of course inclusive of the celebrated projects of Gil's and Miles' work together. And so glad to have, so happy to have you here with us tonight, Ryan. And welcome.
So happy to be here. Thank
welcome
you.
From your remote location.
Yes.
Which we won't disclose where that is. So anyway, I'd like to just get started by just asking you a couple questions before we move forward with your introducing this amazing video you put together with the Gil Evans Project of just the incredible who's who of jazz musicians out there today. So I'd like to ask you as we get started here, just how did you get involved really with Gil Evans music to begin with, and how it's evolved to now?
Sure. Yeah. No. I'm a composer, arranger, obviously, and I've always loved Gil's music, and so it was honestly a very selfish beginning to this project, and I just wanted to research as much of Gil's music and go directly to the source and use his manuscripts, because Gil had such a unique individual way of writing that I couldn't just transcribe it from the records because I needed to know every little detail. So I got in touch with the family, and they were very generous to start showing me and sharing with me some scores, which then led to me doing even more research and uncovering a bunch of music that I discovered that had never been recorded before or played before. People hadn't heard it. And then through a kind of a kick in the pants by Maria Schneider, who I was working with at the time, she convinced me that I should record this and share it with the world. And so we did our first record for Gil's Centennial in 2012. And the album, we did 10 charts of never before heard Gil stuff. And then that evolved to the second record, which we recorded live at Jazz Standard in 2014, came out in 2015. And, we, as Seth knows, but I'm telling the world, we did our premiere for the first record at the Jazz Standard in 2012. And it's become kind of a home to us over the years. This past May would have been our 9th year, consecutive year as a residency there. So yeah, it all just evolved out of a very selfish, composer-driven nerd search on my part. And it turned into a beautiful project, and I got the chance to play some of the most beautiful music in the world with some of the greatest musicians in the world, and I'm just thrilled.
Yeah, well, it's been just amazing for all of us to experience these treasures, and some, as you mentioned, that you completely unearthed. That who knows if they would have ever have seen the light of day and been performed had you not only discovered them, but then gone about the really amazing work of bringing them to light and going through the scores with the depth and knowledge that you have to go through and ensure that what Gil had on paper was honored in the best sense of the way of honoring such works by any composers. So I also want to. Sorry, go ahead. No, please.
I was just going to add to that. I mean, like, when I started going through Gil's scores, I realized the minutia of detail that went into each thing, how he notated each rhythm, how each instrument was assigned a certain note or line, and how they were doubled, and how incredibly important that was to the sound of his music. And he thought of no stone unturned when he was writing this music. So that's why it was so important to me to do this directly from his manuscripts. And the piece, I'm sure we'll get into that, but the piece that we're playing tonight, the Concierto, again, was done from his manuscripts. This is how they would have performed it in the studio.
Which is interesting if we briefly touch on, because I also want to ask you what led to you doing this particular recording project that I'm about to have you introduce and we're about to share with the world as a premiere via our Facebook Live platform. But how is it that you even discovered that some of the performances that have been done of this great work were not necessarily correct to the original score, because changes, and the recordings, because changes were made in the studio, and that how Gil and Miles, when they went in the studio to record this, they thought it was a one and done kind of thing. They had planned on touring it, and as such, changes were made on the fly in the studio. That now you've came around to make those corrections in the score, as I understand it.
Yeah, so absolutely. It was, it's hard to think in this day and age, because when musicians create projects, they usually, very rarely, are not intended for a very long shelf life. You create a record, you promote it, you get the band together, you do a live thing, you do a tour, you go on the road. I mean, even with big bands, my own and everything, that's just kind of the way of doing it. But when they created this record, and Birth of the Cool and Miles Ahead and all of those records, they were not really intended as a touring band. They were done as albums to be sold by a record company. So they put all this hard work into Sketches of Spain and all the other records. And when the sessions were done, they kind of went like this and went on to the next thing. So a lot of what I found was, a lot of the times they made changes. Gil made changes when he heard it. Because oftentimes they didn't have rehearsals either. The first time that they performed this music and Gil got a chance to hear it was in the recording studio when they were there pressing record. So amazing. Gil would it's crazy too, because that's another thing. We have plenty of rehearsals, and you would never go into the studio, just kind of one and done kind of thing. So
we have Finale with all these programs now and everything. You can hear your stuff even through the computer.
Oh, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Finale and all the MIDI realizations and everything. Yeah. But so Gil made changes in the studio. So when I was putting the music together, the actual parts that people played, I was very conscious to first go from Gil's score directly, follow what he had notated. But often the changes weren't done in pencil or anything on the score. They were just said in the moment, and then they did a take, and then that was it, and they moved on. So I did have to go back to several recordings and transcribe things and just listen to see what exactly he wanted or had intended to do in this moment, which was challenging, and it puts a lot of pressure on me, because then I'm stuck making my own decisions based on what I think Gil would have done. But I've done enough of his music at this point and talked to enough people, and I feel like I have a fairly good sense of it. And again, I do as much research and everything I can before I make those decisions. But that was fantastic. It's a lot of work.
Well, I was going to now turn it over to you and have you maybe just touch upon in introducing the work now that we're about to premiere.
Sure.
In terms of what led you to creating this particular recording project, if you can weave that into your introduction to the project now, and then we'll unveil the premiere remote recording of this piece.
Yes, absolutely. So as everyone on the planet knows, we are going through a pandemic, and that pandemic impacted everyone across the world. One of the few instances in my lifetime that something has globally been so detrimental to everyone, financially, and jobs and health and everything. And the arts community has been tremendously damaged because we thrive on live performance and large gatherings of people. That's where we make our business and make our life now. And we, like I said, had our regular scheduled program at Jazz Standard at the end of May. That was scheduled, and we had scheduled to do Sketches of Spain, which was a massive undertaking. It is something that takes up a lot of space. There's 22 musicians involved, percussion, timpani, harp, things like that. And we were going to do them in a basement jazz club in New York City. And then the pandemic happened, which canceled the gig. So I was seeing a lot of people do these remote recordings, and I thought that, these musicians are struggling so much financially because the work is just not going to be back up and running before 2021, if even then. And so I wanted to do something that was kind of a large scale project, something that honored Gil's music and Sketches of Spain. It is the 60th anniversary, after all, of its release.
Right.
And but also do something that could raise a little bit of money for the musicians in the band that have lost not only this one gig, but all gigs, Broadway, recordings, tours, everything that you could imagine. They've lost basically all their income. And so I picked this piece, the Concierto de Aranjuez, by Joaquin Rodrigo. It was arranged by Gil Evans. It's the first track on Sketches of Spain. It's probably the most well-known. Beautiful, gorgeous melody of the second movement. It was originally written for guitar in, I believe, 1939. And this backstory behind how it kind of came to be, obviously, people may be aware that Gil and Miles did Miles Ahead together, and then Porgy and Bess as two big, large ensemble collaborations. This was the third one in as many years. It started in 1957, 1958, and then it was released in 1960 for Sketches of Spain. And it's just a remarkable piece of music, and I think it's the most identifiable from this, which is why I picked the piece. And then as far as things to listen for when you are listening to this, that I find just really fascinating with Gil's writing is, and a little bit of how I put it together. Obviously, this was all done isolated and remote. All the musicians, I had put together a lot of click tracks and had to figure out how to do a piece that has a lot of tempo changes and rubato sections and different fluxes within the tempo without us all being in the room, without me being able to wave my arms and direct things. So I figured all that out. They sent the musicians all their parts. They did them, videotaped them. I put them all together. And when I was editing the video, I wanted to make sure that the video depicted the orchestration that was happening. So if you are hearing a sound, you should be able to look at your screen. And I would say 95% of the time, every instrument that you see in your screen is what is actually playing. And you'll see the musicians come in and out as they go in and out in their parts. So it's a little lesson in orchestration. And I think one of my favorite things is at the very beginning, and this is just kind of a little tidbit to show you how much respect Gil had towards Miles, is you should listen to how Gil frames the soloist. In this case, it's Riley Mulherkar. Obviously, Miles Davis is not on this record. But Riley plays so beautifully, and when Gil sets this thing up, he's got the harp and the castanets creating sound, and then the instruments come in slowly one by one, and they have kind of this undulating and kind of a texture. And as soon as Riley comes in or Miles comes in, you'll notice that everything kind of stops and it clears the air, and it's just this parting of the ways, and all you have is Miles. And then Miles says his part, and then the undulation happens again and again. When Riley comes back in, the stillness happens again. And it's just a really remarkable kind of effect. And it shows to me the respect that Gil had for Miles.
Absolutely. So I think you've done an excellent job of whetting everyone's appetites and spurring their interest to jump into the piece. What I want to just inform everyone watching real quick is we're going to play the piece in its entirety, which is just under 17 minutes, just so you're aware. And then following that, we're going to do a Q&A with some of the fantastic musicians that took part on the project, including the lead trumpeter Riley Mulherkar, and then Jay Anderson and Lewis Nash. So please sure to stick around after the conclusion of this performance video, because we're going to have an engaging conversation. And we're also going to take a couple of well, depending on what we have time for, we're going to take some questions from you, our audience. So get your questions ready as well.
And I'll also, and submit questions, but also I'll say there should be a button for a GoFundMe link in the comments below this section. And that GoFundMe goes directly to the musicians that you're about to watch in this video, all 22 of them. And it would be really great if whatever you can donate would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, even though Seth is controlling all of this, I'll say without further ado, this is the Gil Evans Project featuring Riley Mulherkar on trumpet, doing the Concierto de Aranjuez.
Wow. And hang on 1 second, folks. Wow, as I'm sure you've heard. I know we're hearing applause right now, or you're applauding. I said we can't hear your applause, but we know people are applauding. That was really tremendous, and you can just see what an undertaking this was as well. I like to bring back in Ryan now to join us back, and hold on, folks. Welcome back, Ryan.
Hi, Seth.
Man, congratulations. That's just really phenomenal. I mean, to pull that off in that way and so beautifully, and to have the just the dynamics and everything, how you managed to pull that off with everyone playing remotely and everyone's sensitivities to the piece, and Riley's, everyone is just exquisite, really. I mean, that's tremendous. I mean, my hat's off to you, and I'm sure the audience is singing your praises right now as well. I certainly hope everyone enjoyed that, and how much you honored the Gil's work there, and also what Miles and Gil did together.
Thank you. I would like to. I thank you very much, but really, very little of the credit should go to me to make. That's just a testament to how great the musicians are. Let's have a virtual round of applause for Riley Mulherkar, who
Absolutely
did incredibly beautiful. It's such an emotional piece of music, and how he played like that without a band behind him is remarkable, which we'll ask him about in a minute.
Yes.
But also, I think a big round of applause goes to Tyler McDermott, who helped. He was one of the engineers on the live record, and he was one of the engineers there, and he helped me with the mix here. So he really does get a lot of credit. And then also to all the musicians in the band, which I could read all of their names here, but I won't at the moment. But just to save time for getting to questions and answers.
Yeah.
So if we can we have standing by three musicians from the record. We have Riley Mulherkar, who was the featured soloist. We have Jay Anderson, who played bass, and we have Lewis Nash on drums. So if we could invite them into the to the mix. Lewis is on the New Jersey shore, overlooking Manhattan there. Riley, Jay, welcome, guys.
Thanks,
Welcome,
Ryan.
everyone.
Yeah, beautiful playing. Just gorgeous. Let's if you don't mind, Riley, I'm going to start with you, since you were the Miles Davis of the moment. So I actually never asked you this before. Have you ever played sketches before? I know you and I have done Miles Ahead and Porgy before, but
No, it was my first time, and it sort of felt like the missing puzzle piece, because I played with you, Porgy and Miles Ahead, like you said, and also we did Birth of the Cool.
Oh, that's right.
A year ago.
Yeah.
So Sketches of Spain, it was always floating around as this thing I'd never tried to tackle before.
Well, I promise we'll give you another shot at it when you're actually with the band and you don't have to do it in pieces. But so tell me what it's like, because I think my impression of this music is this is kind of like not just this piece, but these three records, Miles Ahead, Porgy and Bess, Sketches of Spain, are kind of like the concertos of the jazz world for trumpet players, and kind of these like pivotal pieces of music. And I put you in an awkward position of never playing it before, but then having to take on Miles's role. So I'm curious as to how you approached this and how you've approached other Miles roles from us, or with Miles Ahead and Porgy and Bess, and if there's anything that kind of stood out to you as interesting or unique, or things that kind of caught you off guard.
Absolutely. I mean, I love how you described them as the concertos of the jazz trumpet world, but unlike classical concertos, I think classical trumpet players get so tired of playing the Haydn. But for jazz trumpet players, we never get to play this material. It's so rare to be able to step into the shoes of Miles like that. So hats off to you for organizing this thing, because it's such a privilege for any trumpet player to get to dive into that part. Sketches is a whole sort of landscape different than Porgy and Bess and Miles Ahead. Obviously, there's a lot that's similar in terms of the colors, in terms of everything that Gil is painting and the way that Miles brings himself to it. But, you know, I had to really spend some time with Sketches of Spain to even begin to get in the headspace of what this piece is about.
You know, I've read somewhere that Miles, I can't remember, so somebody online will probably call me out on this, but Miles said that, you know, when they finished recording Sketches, he said it was some of the hardest music he had ever played. And I'm curious if you felt, because I don't play trumpet, was he speaking physically or mentally or emotionally or all of the above, or what is that music like for a brass player?
I think both. Luckily for me, the more physical stuff comes later on in the whole work. But mentally, I think that first movement, it is so vast and it takes its time. You know, there's the pacing is almost glacial in some of these sections. So uh you know, you start to get in your head, you start to, you know, a lot of it is written more than one would think is written on the page, but it takes a certain sort of patience to allow yourself to just interpret a beautiful melody like that and not try to fill in every gap. And of course, Miles was a master at that. But in 2020, in this whole sort of short attention span age, it's even more difficult to try to get in the zone.
And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't think people realize just how much of this music is actually written out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say? 2/3 of it is pretty much notated?
I think, I think at least 2/3 of it is notated, but Miles didn't play all those 2/3. He
Yeah.
cheated a little bit.
Yeah.
So my game was sort of actually the key for me was once I found Miles playing it live at Carnegie Hall. That was when I could really figure out what was Miles dealing with in terms of uh, what was he honest to in terms of what was written, and then I tried to be honest to the same things that Miles was, and then stretch
Oh.
in the same ways that Miles did. So
Oh,
that's
interesting.
what unlocked it for me in that way.
Honestly, that's kind of how I prepared the music. You know, Seth and I were saying at the beginning where I had to transcribe and I listened to a bunch of things. I listened to the live version because that's what told me what happened in the studio that Gil liked and retained for the live thing and what he changed and things like that.
Totally. Yeah.
Interesting. And I didn't say at the beginning too. I kind of rushed into it, but Riley. I met Riley when he was a student at Juilliard. He's a fantastic human being. In addition to being a miraculous trumpet player, but he was the recipient. I serve on the I don't know what you would call it, a judging board of directors or something for the Laurie Frink grant, who Laurie Frink used to play with the band before she passed, and Riley was the first recipient of her grant that we honor every 2 years. And so I've gotten to know Riley, and he's played with the band a few times. And like we said, he played Miles Ahead, he played Porgy and Bess, and now we're slowly evolving him into Sketches of Spain as as the rollout of allows, I guess, with the pandemic. So once again, Riley, it was truly beautiful, gorgeous playing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Next on the firing squad, Mr. Jay Anderson, incredible bass player. Jay has been with the Gil Evans Project since its inception. I actually met Jay through my work with Maria Schneider. He was also with Maria Schneider, so we got to know each other there and got to work together. And Jay is one of the greatest bass players ever. He's played with Mike Brecker. He's played with Carmen McRae. He's played with Red Rodney. He's played, like I said, with Maria Schneider. Of course, he's played with the Gil Evans Project. And yeah, so Jay, thank you again for your beautiful playing and your beautiful work and being here tonight.
Thank you.
And I'm going to kind of, not to be a broken record, but I'm curious because each part kind of has its own role in this, and I feel like Gil is he has such a different approach to a lot of writing for different instruments. So how would you say in the concerto, but also in Gil's music as a whole, kind of how the role of the bass is different than what you're used to?
No, that's a great question. What's really kind of amazing is I was kind of looking through, I've had the privilege of playing a lot of this music because of you asked me to be involved in this. And what have we done? Maybe 200 of Gil's arrangements over the last 8 years or so. And it's amazing how much of it is written out. It's probably not the same for the drums, but uh, I think on this piece, I actually looked, and I think there's 200 and change measures of music, and there are 6 measures of chord changes. Uh, so it's like 98% written, which is highly unusual for the kind of music I generally play. But the amazing thing about that written music is, I'm sure everybody on every instrument, you can look at a part and tell uh, if it lies well on your instrument. And every of those 200 tunes, every written note that he has written lies beautifully on the bass and lies within my aesthetic or whatever. I can't imagine better notes to play, and if you look at some of the other stuff you mentioned, Porgy and Bess, or even Miles Ahead, I would say 75% of all of it is written.
Yeah.
Even on ballads, and I remember asking you about this. The only other composer for large ensembles that I can think of is maybe Thad Jones, right, where you're playing a walking bass line on rhythm changes. And I'm really thinking, well, do I really need to play this? And then you realize that bass line is constructed so impeccably and beautifully to match what's going on. And the minute the bass player can put his own spin on things, you're given that opportunity. But for the most part, it so much of it is written that it's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that you forgot to mention about the concerto that you and I have talked about at length is not only is all but 6 measures written, but what would you say the percentage of it is arco versus actually playing pits?
So arco means playing with the bow, and which in my youth, I played a lot of classical music. In my adulthood, not so much. So Ryan said, "Oh, can you do this?" And I said, "Oh, great, man, this will be fantastic. I'm sitting around. This will be fantastic." And then I remembered, oh man, most of it is playing with the bow. So, and not most of it really, to be honest, not that easy. It requires some thought. The bowings. Are you going this way? Are you going that way? Which notes are slurred together, and so I actually spent a lot of time, more so than 95% of other work that I do, just laying out a little map of what to do. And I just have to interject that playing music this way. I mean, I got chills listening to that. And when I did my part, as everybody, I was in my room by myself playing with the. And Ryan put so much effort into each musician having options. Do you want to listen to the click? Do you want to watch him conduct? Do you want to listen to a MIDI track? And when I play the bass, especially, well, any kind of music, it's in the moment. You're the foundation of the band. It has to be in tune. So when I'm playing with other musicians, I'm kind of tweaking things as I go, to adjust to the moment and the human element of the pitch of the notes that I'm playing. And with this, that really wasn't an option. And I know that every of those 22 people that played would say the same thing. And it's super unique and kind of frustrating. But in the end result, because everybody is so amazing, just top to bottom, that even as a participant, I watch it and I forget how each of us did this, and that's a testament to the way you organized it, man. It was just a moving, piece of music. And Riley, incredible, man. You played the songs, but I felt like, you tip your hat to Miles, but I heard you, and it was really beautiful.
Well, yeah, thank you. And that is a good thing to mention, and a testament to how great all of the musicians that performed with this are, because not only did I create some way for them all to play their parts, different ways that would make each musician comfortable to play their parts, but in order to make all the time changes and everything happen, I actually split the piece up into 6 separate sections. And so the way they'd never played it, actually, I'm kind of like showing behind the veil a little bit, or behind the curtain. But yeah, I mean, like they didn't have a chance to actually play it down all start to finish to get a feeling of that arc. And when I was putting all the parts together and syncing everybody's video and audio, I was astounded as to how everyone was really cued in to the shape that they needed to play, and how that kind of overarching arc really came through. So yes, I agree with Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
I want to hear what Lewis has to say, but the only other thing I'll mention just about the process of doing this is it's really quite comedic. I can speak for myself, but there's the video element too, right? So, okay, start the phone, start the tune, play. I did a couple takes where I had forgotten to do the video,
Yeah.
So you have to go back and do it again. It's kind of like, what's that expression? Like a one-armed wallpaper hanger, press start, play, stop, smile. It's really a pretty involved thing,
Yeah.
Everybody did great,
And not only that, but it's also the music is incredibly involved as well. Before I ask Lewis a question, I'm just going to take a little moment to remind people to send in their questions. I'm not following this question thing. We have someone monitoring that. So if you have a question for any one of us about Gil, about the music, about anything, please feel free to add in there and submit your questions, and we'll answer them in a few minutes. And also, don't forget to do the GoFundMe so all of these musicians can get a little help during this pandemic, and for all their hard work that they put into this project. And then that brings me to the great Lewis Nash, again on the coast of New Jersey. Lewis again has been with the project since the beginning. He has played with, I can't even tell you how many musicians, but Betty Carter. I think you got your start with Betty Carter, and spent a good 10-year decade with Tommy Flanagan, McCoy Tyner, Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, the kind of who's who. And again, behind the curtain, I actually had never met you in person before we did this project. And I have to thank you again for taking a risk with this guy and this crazy idea of playing some music from the 40s all the way through the 60s and stuff that you had never heard and never done. And you are the kind of the glue that kind of holds everybody together and makes this really difficult music kind of gel and sound easy. So Lewis Nash, everyone. And Lewis, this is like the one questioned moderator here, but I think it's actually complete. The drum parts are complete opposite of what Jay talked about, where the bass parts were primarily written out. I laugh when I put the music together because you literally have no information whatsoever except for how many measures there are and maybe a few adjectives here and there to describe his feelings. So how not only did I throw you into music that you had never been really exposed to or playing before, but then I give you literally no information and say go. So how did you kind of approach this, and what's your mentality of going into holding down the drum chair in a big band like this?
Well, in this instance, it takes me back to what Jay was saying about how amazing it was that when we finished the project, it seemed like something we'd done live. And so I'm saying that to say that I think a group such as this with so much experience is able to draw upon those many years of experience in order to, let's say, recreate within themselves the vibe of what it would be like if we were playing live. So I think that's where some of the magic of being maybe an experienced musician might come in.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of group we had. And then getting back to the drum parts, not really having much information. There again, you draw upon experience. The drummer on this was Jimmy Cobb, the great Jimmy Cobb, Master Jimmy Cobb, who we just recently he left the earth plane. And the thing about Gil's music is, there's different drummers on the different recordings. There's Art Blakey, there's Roy Haynes, there's Philly Joe, there's Jimmy Cobb, there's different people on the various recordings, but Gil's personality always comes through. Of course, Miles's does, but I think there's a certain way that you kind of subjugate's not the right word. You reprioritize how much of your personality you're going to input into the music when you have something like the stuff that Gil's written, because the value of, doing your part in the team effort to make the whole, be the picture that Gil and Miles had envisioned. So that's what comes to mind for me right away,
Well, can I tell you what I love about you?
Okay.
and what I think is so brilliant, and it's one thing that I struggled with when I was starting this project in the first place, was how do we take music and perform music that was written in 1940 or 1947, and how do we perform it today? Because Gil was never one to really look in the past. He always wanted to move forward, and he probably wouldn't have liked us necessarily performing some music from back then because he was wanting to do new sounds and everything.
Absolutely.
So that balance of staying true to the time and when it was written, but then adding a modern flair to it. And I think I could never describe that fence to stand on, but I feel like you came in without us even talking about it, and you did that. You have the traditional swing, straightforward stuff when it needs to be, but you have this modern flair to it. And I don't know if you're doing that because I know you as a drummer and that's what you do anyway. But if you consciously are thinking about that, or is that something that just comes naturally because you're Lewis
Most
Nash?
definitely, I'm consciously thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a valuable tool to have the ability to do it, the desire to do that, because as you said, Gil was a modernist, perpetually reinventing himself. When I first came to New York from Arizona, and by the way, I'm in Arizona now, to get,
Yeah.
my virtual New York background there. But when I first moved to New York or I first came to New York in the late 70s, I hadn't even moved there yet, but Gil would be with his group at Sweet Basil all the time, and it was electric stuff, Hiram Bullock and Delmar Brown, all these guys. So it wasn't, they weren't recreating the 40s. But but what I will say is that I think if again, back to the experience aspect of things, if you've played so many various types of music in the modern world, and we're living in the modern world, we're on an online thing now. I mean, we're modern people, so it's just kind of the way we breathe in reality is going to. I try to have that in my mindset, that modernity or modernness, whatever the right word is, will be expressed naturally, with some conscious thought, of course, about it, but will be expressed naturally if you just are in the present moment and being a 21st century human being right now.
Yeah.
The way we hear sounds is not how we can't hear the way they heard them, in a certain sense, I guess. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I guess in general, sound is sound. But
Yeah.
we've heard some modern things now that they didn't hear, I think,
True, absolutely. And you see that kind of through jazz history, even when Bird came about with bebop, and how that actually influenced Gil a lot with the rhythmic
Mm-hmm.
displacement and angular lines and things that he was
Right.
doing. I think we're just about out of time.
Yeah.
Seth, do you have any questions from the audience?
We do, actually. We've got a number of questions, and unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get to all of them. And appreciate all your questions, and just hearing what you gentlemen all had to share on this was really insightful and revealing to all of us, musicians and non-musicians, for sure. And so thank you for that. And I'm going to throw some things out to this is open for discussion amongst all of us. I mean, all the panelists here, specifically who performed the piece. So, one thing's asking that Peter had commented that of all the things from before the pandemic time, live jazz is the one he misses the most, of course, and the piece, he was commenting how it almost makes him feel like we'll all get through this after all, and in hearing and experience that, which I want to say that's very meaningful. I know for all of you.
Yes, thank you.
And he's just saying, curious about getting back to live music, and how would you guys feel about being able then to bring this piece back and perform it live? Are there plans to do so in the future, hopefully, to get this whole group together to do this in person?
Is that me?
That's whoever wants to jump. Yeah, I guess that's you as the director of the band, Ryan.
Yeah. Actually, there are plans to do this. Like I said, we were supposed to do all of Sketches of Spain at Jazz Standard in May. We are postponing that until next May. We don't have the exact dates narrowed down yet, but we are hoping, with fingers crossed, that we are in a position globally to be able to at least get 22 musicians on a tiny stage together. And do it. But yeah, so right now we're planning on doing at Jazz Standard in New York City in May of 2021 to do. I hope this is okay. I didn't even ask Seth if I can talk about this.
Please,
but yeah,
go ahead.
May of 2021 in New
That's
York
all
City,
good.
we're planning on doing sketches again, as all things considered. And yeah, I think, it's really difficult because live music is such an important part of not only musicians' lives, but I think culture's lives as well. And I think it's imperative that we figure out some way as soon as possible to find out ways that we can make that happen, whether it be small groups, socially distanced, performances at clubs, or lives, if we can get a trio together at a club and then stream it online, which I know some are doing. I know there's a lot of performing arts centers that have streaming content. So I think we're inching our way there, but the importance is to be safe when we do it. But I do think it will 100% come back at some point.
Definitely. So this is for all the panelists to jump in and share their feelings about this. But the question: how has performing this piece and others that Gil and Miles have done together, that you've participated in with Gil Evans Project or with others, but in particular, even say tonight, since we're focused on this from Sketches of Spain right now in celebration of 60th anniversary, how has that informed your appreciation for Miles and Gil? How has it made you? What has it done in terms of having you, when you go back and look and listen to some of this work? How does your having now played some of these pieces, like with this concerto that isn't often performed, obviously, versus something like All Blues and the standards that Miles is known for as well? How has that impacted and influenced and informed your appreciation of this, and just some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll dive in just speaking about maybe Miles. I think rather than like any one or two lessons. Generally, it's more just the depth, I think, that a piece like this requires. You can't skate over this piece. So the depth of study that went into it, and the amount of listening, the number of times I had that record on throughout COVID, I can't even begin to tell you. And I had COVID, and this Miles got me through with Sketches of Spain.
Wow.
I was listening to it so much, and then listening to the Live at Carnegie recording so much. So I think more than anything, it's just the, it forces you to go deeper than most music I encounter does, and through that depth, I think anytime I return to this piece and listening to it, or anytime, especially with the Gil Miles collaboration, you're just thrown right back into that world, and it's a beautiful, beautiful world to live in, and it's a beautiful world to escape to as well. It's a really wonderful place to hang out for a while.
Oh,
I'll just say briefly.
please, yeah.
I can speak for every musician I know. Like, every time we play music, it's a constant learning curve. Every gig, every recording session, playing with other people, I learn something every time. And since I've had the honor of playing Gil's music, I remember sitting at Avatar Recording Studio, and I think we were recording maybe what was ultimately Time of the Barracudas, and what's the tune that opens it up?
It was Waltz, that big orchestra piece, right, that we did?
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, Barber Song.
Oh, yeah. Barber Song.
I'm playing, and I'm in this massive room with Lewis, and there's 3 flutes, 3 French horns, 1 contrabass bassoon, 2 regular bassoons, Lewis, me, the whole experience. And I was, whether it was, and I don't know how many people were on that tune, maybe 30 or something.
Yeah.
But whether it's 30 people or 5 people, whether it's at the end of his career or with Claude Thornhill, all of that music sounds like Gil Evans, whether it's a few people, 30 people, and it blows me away, and usually he's an interpreter, most of it is his arranging, but I can think of very few people that can put their stamp on music that somebody else composed and personalize it and make it so rewarding to play,
I second that.
I know we don't have much time, but I just want to say, Jay, you put your finger on something that's really important. I believe is the interpretive skill is very much needed these days. That kind of interpretive skill for playing too, interpreting, and when you're playing and writing or arranging or whatever, just the ability to do that, put your own stamp on whatever it is. I think that's
develop your own sound.
Yeah,
exactly. Like Gil was constantly searching for sounds, and by doing that, he created his own voice, the individuality of a composer.
Yeah.
The individualism of Gil Evans, wasn't that a title of one of his records? Yeah.
Yeah, no one has it.
Well, I want to thank all of you so much for such a really enjoyable and insightful discussion, for the work that you guys, and then the others also. I want to thank the ones that couldn't join us tonight, in terms of the musicians that participated in this project, and for just the tremendous amount of work and care and dedication and passion that went into this on everyone's part, and that really comes through, and it's just very meaningful. And I thank you all on behalf of all the audience, because they can't all thank you right now, unfortunately, here the way it would be if you were performing it live in front of the audience. But and I think that we will obviously at some point, I urge anyone who has the opportunity in the future, when we can get past the challenges we are currently experiencing, and we will, to when you hear this group Gil Evans Project live in a room, it's really playing arrangements of Gil Evans music. It's really something spectacular. It's really you it gives you an appreciation of what went into and Gil's writing, and just the incredible tasks that these musicians deal with in performing this music so incredibly well. I mean, it just takes such a high level of musicianship to pull off what you guys do, and then add to that having done this in quarantine just is, I don't say an impossible task, but you guys did it. So thank you.
Well,
thank you very much,
Seth, and thanks to, I would like to also thank the musicians of the band that we've all played together for a very long time, and all these three gentlemen here, Riley and Lewis and Jay, and for giving me an opportunity to have the best musical experiences of my life by standing in front of you and waving my arms and getting in your way, but but being able to do that in such a beautiful spot and listen to everything and kind of make my dreams come true with all this. So thank you all. And just another reminder, a plug before we sign off,
yes,
that there is a donation button for GoFundMe for these musicians. You will, by donating the total amount will go split evenly between all the musicians in the video, and this will be a huge help to all of them during a time that live performance and income coming from that is basically non-existent. So we really appreciate everyone, and reach out to all of us and take a look at the video at the end when you can see all the names of the musicians in the band. That'll add another 10 minutes if I read everybody's name off.
yeah.
But make sure that you follow them on social medias, and follow the Gil Evans Project, and follow Standard, and follow NJPAC, which again, I'd like to thank NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, for their involvement tonight. And and thank you again finally to Seth and the Jazz Standard for having us and giving us a home and supporting us all.
Yeah. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you guys. Wow. Just thank you. I think we're going to have to do more of this. I think people are going to want to hear more projects, and hopefully there'll be fewer needed in quarantine in the future. But in the meantime, this is where we're at. So yeah, let's see what we can. Let's see what you have in store next, Ryan. I know we're eagerly anticipating whatever will be. And I do want to remind,
only about 2.5 months that you have to wait between.
Yeah, that's what we didn't get to explain the tremendous the work that went into this. It's everyone's being modest here, but it was really something to tackle on so many levels, as also some the Jay alluded to, and what he had to do, all the hats they had to wear that they normally don't have to wear when performing in a recording in a studio or something, or recording live. So I'd like to again thank everybody. Thank you in the audience for joining us tonight and being our audience, our virtual audience. We will be sharing this, so for those that you know of that you want to make mention to that didn't have the opportunity to see it for one reason or another, that you think would enjoy this, which I can't imagine who wouldn't, but please do let them know. And again, as a just a few closing announcements, as Ryan shared throughout, there is a GoFundMe donation that there is no donation that's too small, and they won't turn any donations away that are too large either. So really, there's no minimum, as we like to say at the Jazz Standard too, as the club goes. But in all seriousness, yeah. So and those of you that can't contribute, if you know others that you want to share this with, who may be able to, then please do so. We just appreciate your being here, even if you can't contribute tonight. So in closing, I'd like to again thank you Jazz Standard, thank you NJPAC for your support of this program and allowing us to do this. Again, please be sure to check out njpac.org for their latest upcoming performances and their full list of online programming, which include programs such as this from NJPAC in your living room, and as well as they have tons of educational videos for children and so much more. we ask that you all stay safe, be well, look after each other, and this music is a good way of healing all of us tonight. So thank you again, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you at the next opportunity we have to join you in on your screens, in your homes, wherever you are. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to the audience. And good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye.